Welcome to Yawns and Beyond, where bedtime stories take you on enchanting journeys to faraway lands. Tonight's tale is about a princess named Tanegra who dreams of a world beyond her castle walls. Relax, settle in, and let this magical story guide you into a peaceful sleep. Sweet dreams await. In the middle of a lush valley, surrounded by an enchanted forest, stood a magnificent castle with high towers that seemed to kiss the clouds. Inside one of the tallest towers lived Princess Tanegra, a young girl with kind eyes, deep brown skin that glowed like polished amber, and curls as dark as a starless night. For as long as Tanegra could remember, her mother, Queen Leora, had forbidden her to leave the castle. "The world is dangerous, my dear," her mother often said, her voice laced with authority and a hint of sadness. "Cruelty, greed, and heartache are all that await beyond these walls." Though Tanegra loved her mother deeply, her heart ached to see the world. She often gazed out her tower window, her imagination filling the spaces she could not explore. When loneliness grew unbearable, she sought solace in her stuffed animals, her beloved Stuffies. She had a bunny named Patches, a lion named Rory, and a penguin named Waddleton. They had been her companions since she was a baby, and she often imagined they could speak, creating grand adventures for them within the confines of the castle. One fateful evening, as the golden hues of sunset painted the valley, Tanegra sat by her window with her Stuffies arranged around her. "Patches," she sighed, holding the bunny close, "do you think Mother is right? Is the world really as bad as she says?" To her astonishment, Patches moved. His button eyes sparkled, and his stitched mouth curved into a warm smile. "Only one way to find out," Patches replied, his voice soft and curious. Tanegra gasped, clutching the bunny tighter. But before she could question what was happening, Rory stretched, his mane puffing up proudly. "Adventure awaits, princess," he declared, his voice a regal roar. Waddleton waddled over with a determined expression. "Time to leave this tower," he said, his voice steady and wise. The room seemed to hum with a newfound energy. The Stuffies led Tanegra to a hidden staircase in her room, one she had never noticed before. Its entrance was concealed behind a tapestry depicting a serene garden. "Where did this come from?" she asked, her voice trembling with wonder. "The castle has secrets, just like your heart," Patches said. The air grew cooler as they descended, and the walls shimmered faintly, as if imbued with ancient magic. The staircase led to a secret garden filled with flowers that glowed softly in the moonlight, their petals shimmering with a silvery light. At the garden's center stood a gate made of shimmering vines pulsating with an otherworldly energy. "This will take us beyond the castle," Waddleton explained, his tiny wings gesturing toward the gate. Tanegra hesitated, her mother's warnings echoing in her mind. "But Mother, she wants to protect you," Patches said gently. "But you're ready to see the world, Tanegra." Summoning her courage, Tanegra stepped through the gate with her Stuffies. The world outside unfolded before her like a dream. The sky stretched endlessly, adorned with stars that winked playfully. The forest beyond was alive with the sounds of rustling leaves, the distant murmur of streams, and the occasional hoot of an owl. Tanegra's heart soared as she explored, her Stuffies guiding her through the towering trees. But their joy was short-lived. In a clearing, they stumbled upon a group of villagers gathered around a fallen tree. A young boy was trapped beneath its massive trunk, crying out in pain. "Someone help him!" Tanegra exclaimed, rushing forward. The villagers hesitated, their faces pale with fear. "This forest is cursed," one man said. "We dare not interfere." Tanegra knelt beside the boy, her hands trembling. "Patches, what do I do?" "You have a kind heart, princess," the bunny said. "Trust it." With Rory's strength and Waddleton's cleverness, they lifted the tree just enough for Tanegra to free the boy. "You're safe now," she whispered, brushing tears from his cheek. The villagers stared in awe, their fear giving way to gratitude. "Who are you?" an elderly woman asked. "I'm Tanegra," she said simply, her voice filled with quiet strength. "Thank you, princess," the villagers said, bowing deeply. They offered her food and a place to rest, their gratitude boundless. News of Tanegra's bravery spread quickly. Villagers from nearby came to see her, bringing gifts of gratitude and stories of their struggles. Crops that failed, rivers that dried, and fears that plagued them. As Tanegra listened, she realized the world wasn't just dangerous, it was also filled with people who needed kindness and hope. "We can help them," she told her Stuffies. So Tanegra and her companions traveled from village to village, helping where they could. Along the way, she encountered mystical creatures, a wise old owl who offered cryptic advice, a mischievous sprite who led them to hidden treasures, and a grieving river spirit who needed help restoring her waters. Each encounter challenged Tanegra to grow, and her heart and courage deepened with every trial. But her joy was tinged with sorrow. She missed her mother, and knew she had to face her someday. One evening, while camping by a sparkling lake, the air shimmered, and Queen Leora appeared. Her face was etched with worry, but her eyes softened when she saw Tanegra. "My child," the queen said, "you've disobeyed me." "Mother," Tanegra said, her voice steady, "I had to see the world for myself. And it's not just danger and darkness, it's also beauty and love. People need us." Queen Leora's gaze fell to the Stuffies, who stood protectively by Tanegra's side. "Your magic awakened them," she said. "You've always had a gift, my dear, one I tried to shield you from." "Why?" Tanegra asked. "Because I was afraid," the queen admitted. "Afraid the world would hurt you, as it hurt me." "But hiding won't stop the world from being what it is," Tanegra said. "We can face it together." Queen Leora sighed, then nodded. "You've grown wiser than I ever imagined. Perhaps it's time for me to trust you." Together, Tanegra and her mother returned to the castle, where they opened its gates to the villagers. The castle became a sanctuary, where people could find help and hope. As for the Stuffies, they remained by Tanegra's side, their loyalty unwavering. On nights when the moonlight bathed the valley in silver, Tanegra would sit by her window, looking at the world she had once been so eager to see. She had found her place in it, not just as a princess, but as a symbol of kindness and courage. Princess Tanegra and the Stuffies, the rescue of Prince Aid. It was a quiet evening in the Enchanted Valley. Princess Tanegra sat by her tower window, gazing at the twilight sky with her Stuffies. Patches, Rory, and Waddleton kept her company as the stars began to twinkle. Suddenly, the faint sound of wings flapping broke the peaceful silence. A magnificent snowy owl swooped into the room, carrying a scroll in its talons. The owl landed gracefully on the windowsill and looked directly at Tanegra. "Oliver!" Tanegra exclaimed, recognizing Prince Addy's enchanted owl. "What's wrong?" The owl hooted softly and dropped the scroll into her hands. Tanegra unrolled it quickly and read, "Tanegra, I need your help. An evil sorcerer has overthrown my kingdom and locked me in the dungeons. Only you and your Stuffies can save me. Oliver will guide you. Please hurry." Tanegra's heart raced. Prince Addy was her closest friend. Without hesitation, she turned to her Stuffies. "Prince Addy needs us," she said firmly. "Are you with me?" Quote, Patches hopped onto her shoulder. "Always." Rory puffed out his chest. "Let's show that sorcerer who's boss." Waddleton adjusted his little scarf. "Time to waddle into action!" Oliver hooted again and led the way. Tanegra and her companions followed Stuffy into the enchanted forest. The trees whispered secrets as they passed, and glowing fireflies lit their path. The journey wasn't easy. Dark vines reached for them, and shadows seemed to move on their own. At one point, they encountered a riddle-guarded bridge over a bubbling, magical river. A stone troll emerged, blocking their path. "To cross, solve my riddle," the troll growled. "What has roots, as nobody sees, is taller than trees. Up, up it goes, yet it never leaves?" Tanegra thought hard. "A mountain!" she exclaimed. The troll grumbled but stepped aside. "You may pass." The group pressed on until they reached the gates of Prince Akide's kingdom. The once beautiful land was now shrouded in darkness. Crops had withered, and the air felt heavy with despair. They sneaked into the castle through a hidden passage Oliver revealed. Inside, they found themselves in a labyrinth of twisting corridors, each filled with magical traps. "Stay close," Patches whispered. Waddleton used his keen sense of direction to navigate the maze, while Rory's strength helped them push past heavy stone doors. Finally, they reached the dungeon where Prince Amédée was held. "Tanegra!" Amédée exclaimed, his face lighting up when he saw her. "We're getting you out," she promised. Using a key Waddleton had swiped from a sleeping guard, they unlocked the cell. But before they could escape, the evil sorcerer appeared, his dark robes billowing and his eyes glowing red. "You dare defy me?" he thundered. The sorcerer summoned swirling shadows to block their path. "You will never leave here!" he bellowed. Tanegra stepped forward, her Stuffies by her side. "You underestimate the power of kindness and courage," she said, her voice steady. Patches used his charm to confuse the sorcerer, hopping around and distracting him. Rory leaped forward with a mighty roar, scattering the shadows. Oliver scratched at the sorcerer with his talon. Waddleton waddled up to the sorcerer and snatched the magical amulet from around his neck, the source of his power. With the amulet in their hands, the sorcerer's strength began to fade. He tried to cast one last spell, but Tanegra held up the amulet and channeled its energy into a light beam. The sorcerer cried out as the light dissolved his darkness, and he vanished in a puff of smoke. The Stuffies cheered, and Tanegra turned to Ade, now free. "You did it," he said, smiling. "No," Tanegra replied. "We did it together." With the sorcerer defeated, the kingdom began to heal. Flowers bloomed, rivers flowed, and the skies cleared. The villagers celebrated Tanegra and her Stuffies, hailing them as heroes. Prince Ade thanked Tanegra. "You've shown me what true friendship means." Tanegra smiled. "And you've reminded me that even in the darkest times, there's always hope." Oliver hooted softly as the two friends stood together as if to say, "Well done." That night, back in her tower, Tanegra gazed at the stars with her Stuffies. She knew they could face anything together, no matter the challenges ahead. "Good night, Patches. Rory, Waddleton," she whispered. "Good night, world." The Stuffies snuggled close, and Tanegra drifted off to sleep, dreaming of new adventures to come. Princess Tanegra and the Stuffies. The search for the Stone of Hope. It was a quiet morning in the kingdoms of Princess Tanegra and Prince Ade, but something felt off. The streets were empty, shops were closed, and not even the usual happy birds chirping could be heard. The people had fallen under a strange gloom called the Saddies. They didn't want to eat, sleep, or work. Princess Tanegra sat with her Stuffies Patches, Rory, and Waddleton, looking out over her kingdom. "Everyone looks so unhappy," she said softly. Just then, Prince Agiade arrived on horseback, his enchanted owl Oliver perched on his shoulder. "It's the same in my kingdom," he said. "We need to figure out what's going on." The two friends headed to the royal library. Deep within its towering shelves, they discovered an ancient book of legends. Flipping through its dusty pages, Prince Akid stopped at a story about the Stone of Hope. "The Stone of Hope," he read aloud, "is said to shine so brightly that it fills the hearts of all who see it with joy and courage. But long ago, it was lost in the enchanted caverns beyond the wandering woods." "That must be the answer," Tanegra exclaimed. "If we find the stone, we can bring hope back to our people." With their Stuffies ready for adventure, the two friends packed supplies and set off. Their journey began in the wandering woods, a magical forest where the trees seemed to move, changing the paths in the forest. As they walked, glowing fireflies led the way, but soon they encountered their first challenge, a riddle carved into a stone archway. "To pass, you must answer," read Tanegra. "I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. I have nobody, but I come alive with the wind. What am I?" The group thought hard. Patches twitched his nose. "Maybe it's an echo?" "An echo!" Tanegra and Ande shouted. The archway glowed and opened, allowing them to pass. Next, they reached the River of Reflections, where they had to cross stepping stones, but each stone bore a different symbol, and stepping on the wrong one made the river ripple wildly. We need a pattern, Waddleton said, waddling closer to the edge. Oliver hooted and pointed his wing at the sky, where the stars formed the same symbols. They crossed safely by matching the pattern in the sky to the stones. Finally, they entered the enchanted caverns. The walls glittered like diamonds, but a heavy stone door with 3 glowing slots blocked the path ahead. Looks like we need keys, Rory said, puffing up his mane. The group split up to search the cavern. Tanegra found a golden key hidden under a pile of sparkling rocks. Acte discovered a silver key hanging from a crystal stalactite. And Waddleton, with his keen eye, spotted a bronze key in the reflection of a shimmering pool. They placed the keys into the slots, and the door rumbled open, revealing a grand chamber. The Stone of Hope rested on a pedestal in the center of the room, but as Tanegra reached for it, the pedestal began to sink into the ground. "Hurry!" she cried. "Teamwork!" Rory roared. Patches hopped onto the pedestal, slowing its descent. Waddleton and Akeride pushed the pedestal upward, while Tanegra grabbed the stone just in time. The stone shone so brightly that it filled the entire cavern with golden light, but their celebration was short-lived. The walls began to tremble, and rocks started to fall. "We need to get out!" Atade shouted. Oliver flew ahead, leading the group back through the caverns. They burst out into the sunlight just as the entrance collapsed behind them. They hurried back to the castle with the Stone of Hope safely in their hands. At the castle, Tanegra and Ade climbed to the highest tower. Together, they placed the Stone of Hope in its rightful place at the top of the spire. The stone began to glow, sending beams of golden light across the land. As the light touched the villages, the people looked up, their faces brightening. Slowly, the gloom of the saddies lifted. Children laughed, shopkeepers opened their doors, and farmers returned to their fields. Tanegra and Akide watched from the tower, smiling. "We did it," Akide said. "We brought hope back." Tanegra nodded. "And we couldn't have done it without our Stuffies. Or each other." As the sun set, Prince Asadeh prepared to return to his kingdom. "Goodbye for now," he said, waving. Tanegra waved back, holding Patches close. That night, she climbed into bed with her Stuffies and gazed at the starry sky. "Good night, Patches. Good night, Rory. Good night, Waddleton," she whispered. "And good night, world." The Stuffies snuggled close, and Tanegra drifted off to sleep, dreaming of her next adventure.